So Cathy and I got married young, and we weren't expecting any kind of fertility issues. We just expected to start our family and keep things moving right along. And we had a miscarriage early on, and on our first try actually. And then our son Christian was born, and then we had 3 more losses after him. And then our daughter was born. And in between there was kind of our time where we were testing and trying to figure out what the problem was. And all along, just pursuing lots of different medical assistance. But Cambria, our second child, was conceived without fertility drugs or anything like that. And then we had 2 more miscarriages after Cambria, and that's when we looked into the Snowflakes program.
We joke with people now that I could name like every fertility doctor within a 30-mile radius of our home, because I was like desperate to find answers and searching, and nobody could give us answers as to why we were having the miscarriages. So yeah, we did a bunch of testing, went through a bunch of invasive procedures, tried IUIs, tried Clomid.
And the reason that we know all of the fertility doctors in the area is not because we tried IVF with all of them. Really, it is just because we were looking for answers.
Yeah.
And that was the difficult thing for us, is that
not knowing.
It wasn't like there was a problem with the sperm or a problem with the eggs that was definite and
that we could fix.
Yeah, that we could put our finger on and or deal with in another way.
Mm-hmm.
There really was no answer. It was kind of left up to this vague genetic issue, and which only means that, based on our experience, most of our pregnancies were going to end in a miscarriage rather than a healthy child. Initially, when we started our adoption process, we were focusing on domestic adoption, and the adoption agency that we were looking into showed us a workshop. So we went to, with other families, meet and hear about all different types of adoption that the agency offered.
So as we were going through the process to do domestic adoption, when we were doing our home study, the social worker, when she heard our story, said, "Oh, so embryo adoption might work for you too, right? Why didn't you decide to do that?"
At that time, our knowledge of embryo adoption was really limited, and we were afraid that it was something that wasn't safe for us, or not as safe as a domestic adoption that we perceived at that time to be safer and
in achieving for us a baby.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was what we wanted. After all of the miscarriages and after all of the trials that we'd been through, we just wanted something that was quote unquote guaranteed. Our initial reaction was that it was a little bit too much medical interference, and that wasn't something.
And at that time too, we had some concerns. We were just so uneducated at that time. We had some concerns about a genetic family, and we just thought, well, that's kind of weird. That's someone else's baby, and we wouldn't want anything to do with a genetic family, you know. And so I think that was kind of.
Even though all adoptions, or most adoptions now, are open, and the whole process is open in lots of different scenarios, but at that time, as Cathy said, we just weren't educated. So Cathy went in for a consultation, yet another one, and she came home with pretty much the same answer we'd been told over and over and over again. But this time she came home with a light bulb, and that was that all of a sudden embryo adoption sounded like a really good option to her.
It was a process, definitely.
Yeah.
It was a long process to get us to that point of being excited about that option.
And so that was really where the process began for us to start investigating more about embryo adoption, learning more about it, and to try and see if that was a good fit for us.
So we made the decision to do embryo adoption, and I couldn't wait to call Megan at the adoption agency, and I had a list of questions to ask her. I was wanting to go full force. I wanted to know what we would need to do to change our home study over from domestic to the embryo adoption program and timelines, and just really wanted to get started and pursue, go in that direction. So I called her. It was an easy thing to change over, and we started the process.
For me, I think the great thing about embryo adoption and what was most appealing is that we were, for us and growing our family where we were at, we were ready for the next child to come to our family.
So when we finally thought about embryo adoption more seriously, it was a way that I could be pregnant. So we felt like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get to experience pregnancy with these adopted children. What could be better than that? We get the blessing of adoption as well as carrying them and feeling them moving inside of my body as they're growing, and even getting to nurse them, after they're born. All things that I had experienced with my other children, and I wanted to experience with my adopted children too. So I think that was a huge part of it for me. I just really wanted to be pregnant again. I enjoyed being pregnant.
It made sense for us to switch gears and go that route.
Our experience with the fertility doctor that we used was awesome. I just asked they have actually a website of other women that have done embryo adoption, and I asked, which doctor did you all use or who's good in this area, and I got a referral. Went to a fertility doctor who had done snowflakes, who had done a transfer for embryo adoption before, so they knew the ropes. They knew exactly what was going to happen. It was nothing new to them. And he was willing to do a natural cycle with me, which was huge. That meant that there would not be the issue of the shots, which was a huge fear of mine, when we were considering doing it. He was going to be able to just time my own natural ovulation. And when I ovulated, we would transfer the embryos. He'd be monitoring me and watching very closely, and then transfer the embryos at that exact time so that my own body would produce the progesterone and all the hormones you need to sustain a pregnancy. So kind of tricked my body into, thinking, okay, now do this, And so I didn't even need to have the shots that I had been so fearful of. And he was willing to do that and very familiar with it. And it was a very simple process. We have 12 embryos that are still frozen and waiting, although we aren't completely decided yet. Every time I think of doing another transfer, I feel very excited. And we did want a large family. I know that many people would think after twins that we're insane, but it's an exciting journey and adventure, and I would love to do that again. So it's kind of in deliberation right now.
And so to think of doing anything different is, it just doesn't sit right.
I was just gonna say that if we have, they will ask us if our family is complete, then what they do is have you give the embryos back to the genetic family, and then they would, of course, adopt them out to other families. So that may end up happening. It's probably not possible for us to have as many transfers as would happen with 12 frozen embryos, because all of my other deliveries were C-sections. So even to have one more would be a 4th C-section. So that's part of it also.
And also, we weren't prepared for twins.
Yeah, that has been an adjustment for us.
People asked us all along, are you ready for twins? And I don't think there's anything you can do to prepare for twins.
Until they come, it's a handful, but they're such a joy. They're the sweetest babies. So people always ask us, that's kind of weird. How are you going to bring that up? Are you going to always let them know their story, or, what are you going to tell them? And for us, it's simple. It doesn't seem weird at all. We just are going to be honest with them from, forever. And I actually made this scrapbook that tells the whole story of their conception, us being matched with them. It has one picture in the beginning of their genetic family, and then at the end it has a quote from an email that the genetic father wrote to us on the day of my baby shower with them. It shows them in the little R2D2 canister when we were driving them from one doctor to the other, and it just shows the whole process and journey that we were on during the pregnancy and everything with them. So we will always show them this scrapbook. Our older kids look at the scrapbook and we share it with people because it's a celebration. It's something we're excited about. So it will always be part of their story. They'll always know it, so there won't be any surprises. We have 4 kids now, and we even have potential to have more kids if we want to. And that was a luxury that we never had before when we were going through all of the fertility crud. We never were able to decide we want to have 6 kids spaced like this, and we want a birthday in June or whatever. And now we do have those choices.
Embryo donation and adoption. Share the hope. Learn more at embryoadoption.org.